Hello everybody, I'm going to do a review and show the installation of this Level Master automatic ladder leveler legs that I picked up from Sherwin-Williams. These are made by Werner and it is a model PK80-2. And basically what these do is if you have a sloped area or a stair or something along those lines, these will automatically level themselves from one side to the other, and you just simply pick up your ladder and set it down, and when you put the weight of the ladder down or stand on it, it locks these things in automatically. Very cool stuff. They retailed at Sherwin-Williams for $105.89, and little beknownst to me, I guess I'm a preferred customer, so I got 10% right off the top, and then I applied a $15 off coupon of anything over $75. So instead of $105.89, I paid $80.30 plus tax. Not too bad. Comes with some really nice feet with spurs on them. Good rubber sole. These are for the fiberglass ladder when you put them on. These are rung. They go on the rungs to give it more support, and the associated hardware to install those. I'm not going to need those for my aluminum ladder. A couple bolts here and the associated nuts, a series of nuts here, some brackets. This rod will connect the two legs together internally through the rung on the ladder. These are 1/4 bolts, nuts that came with it, and these are locking nuts, so they're actually kind of egg shaped, so when you put them on they just lock in place. I'm switching those out to a high grade 1/4 nylock. Main reason is I may want to put these on a different ladder later, and the studs that are sticking off on these are some type of a proprietary design. They have a very odd shaped head on them. It's not just a regular bolt, so I didn't want to run the risk of popping one of those off if I decided to change it to a different ladder. Now there's one caveat with this according to the instructions, a major one, and that's something to keep in mind. According to the instructions on all the ladders that you would install this on, you would chop off a rung and a section of the bottom of the ladder and then put these on. And I'm going to try to get away from doing that on mine and see if I can get it to work out. I'm not sure why they would do that. Nothing in mine is going to get in the way. So it may be a height restriction, something along those lines with OSHA or maybe an ANSI standard, who knows. So don't do as I do, do as I say. Now there's another caveat with this that you need to know up front if you go to buy one of these. Depending on the ladder you have, and these are all specific to Werner model ladders by the way, you may need a kit in addition to the legs themselves. And in my case with my 1100 series, it says I need a kit 36-9, which is nothing more than 16 spacer sleeves and 16 tapping screws to space the fly section or the sliding section up so it doesn't interfere with this hardware. I'm not buying that kit. It was around $23, I think. I'm going to make my own spacers and I'll show them, give some ideas for that. If you have a 1500 series ladder or basically one of the orange fiberglass series, you're supposed to get another kit which is a 36-14, which are 2 guide brackets, some bolts and some nuts. And best I could tell, the guide bracket looking at it online is just the original guide bracket that has a piece of it cut off. So it may be possible just to whack that off instead of buying those brackets, but that's just a buyer beware on these. You may need some, and they're supposed to be a little complicated to put on. Definitely read the instructions 3 or 4 times because they kind of jump all over the place, you know, depending on the ladder model you have. So you might go through and strike out sections you don't need. Get a good feel for it before you go hacking away on your ladder. Another thing that it did come with are 2 sheets of these templates, left and right. You're supposed to cut them out and then fold them along the dotted line, and there's different ones for different ladders. I'll find mine on this list and make them. I will keep them because if I do change my ladder, they will come in handy to set it up on the next one. It also has this rod, if I didn't mention it, that it connects the two halves through a rung. And then a little gauge here you can cut out and use to make sure everything's working out fine. So it's going to be a kind of a lengthy video, but I'm going to go ahead and step through it and show at least what I'm doing on mine, and then we're going to test this thing out. They're supposed to work really, really great. I actually ran into a guy in a parking lot yesterday that had one on his dish service truck, and I'd already been looking at him and I quizzed him about him, and he was just really raving on it, so I figured I couldn't go wrong. Okay, I removed the fly section off my ladder and I just have the base sitting here. Taking off my original legs, setting those aside. This ladder model number is a D1116-2, and according to the instructions I'm supposed to start up at the second rung, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to install it on the first rung, and right here is where the rod would go through on the first rung, and it would be mounted something similar to this. The only thing I can see that might be a problem so far, just in my looking, is they may not travel all the way up to their maximum, but they should still work. Meaning I may lose an inch or two of its total height differential that it could have in it, but I'm okay with that at a test. And my second notion would be, if I didn't like that, I could cut this section off to give myself more travel, and if that still didn't work out, I can go ahead and take it off and move it up to the second rung and cut this whole piece off. So like I said, I'm trying to make this installation to where I can back out of it at any given point in time, put my original feet back on, and maybe mount these to a new ladder. Okay, now I'm at the point where I'm laying out for my templates. On my particular ladder I should have put those spacers on there. That would have been the logical step in the instructions, but I'm doing that later. So basically what we're doing here is this side here is the climbing side of the ladder, and on that we're catching this inside edge right here. Hopefully this turns out. That hole, I'm just closing that hole up, and then I've scribed a pencil mark here and down here, and you can see my line. Now the second reference mark to make is at this corner right here. I'm taking a square at the end of the ladder, and you can see I'm just catching that edge, and I've also scribed lines up and down. And they're a little faint, but it's right here. And that will be marked just like this on both sides of the ladder. Okay, the next thing to do would be to locate the proper template for your ladder, and mine is the 1100 series. So I've cut out this section of the template, I've cut out around its perimeter, and it says to fold up along this dotted line on both sides. I'm not doing that, but you just simply lay your template down, and hopefully you can see these reference lines, all four of them right here. Line them up to the lines that you made on the ladder. Double check everything just like that. You can see I'm lined up here, 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 and here, and then tape this down, and do that to both sides of the ladder as well. Okay, if you are going to cut off the bottom of your ladder just like the instructions, once you get your template on there, scribe the end of this template, and that will be where you cut your ladder off if it applies to you. So at this stage I'm ready to center punch all of these holes and then drill them out to a 19/32. So I'm going to use my automatic punch here and punch those indentions on all 6 of these, and then I'll drill these holes out. Now I'm going to start with a 1/16 inch pilot bit to make sure that that drill bit doesn't walk anywhere, and then I'll enlarge the hole out to 19/32. And I'll do the same thing on both sides. Okay, well I have all 12 of my holes drilled, everything's looking good. Now it's time to determine the length of this aluminum rod here. And on my particular ladder, I'm measuring the outside of this web to the outside of this one, and that was 15 3/4 inches. So whatever your measurement there is, then you add 2.5 inches to it. So I'm going to cut this rod in a length of 18.25 inches. Okay, well I have the shafting cut to length for my application. I'm just laying one of the legs down here, inserting the shaft, and then I'm going to pick up the ladder and just guide it on there. Just like that. Now on this side I'll install these brackets and tighten up the nuts. Alright, well that's been all put together and tightened up. You can see the rod sticking out through this rung. It came with this little gauge here that you can cut out if you want. And then there's a segment where you would be too short or too long. You need to be within this allowable range. So you just hold it up on the ladder, and it looks like I'm about a 1/16 inch below their maximum, so that should be okay, I believe. And if I get any binding, I might want to shorten that up just a tad. So at this point, it's just simply repeating what you've just done and installing this leg. So I'll put my brackets on, tighten this up, and we'll move to the next step. Alright, everything has been tightened up and installed. It's looking good. It's now time to do a actuation test. The tape was not supposed to be removed at all until this stage, and what I'm doing is just taking a knife and cutting the tape right along there on the top and the bottom. Well, alright, let's give it a test. When I push up on this leg, this one should come down automatically. And it did, and it should do the same going the other direction. And that worked. So pushing on both of them at the same time should cause them to lock. And they did lock. Okay, so that looks successful. If for some reason yours isn't working right, as far as I know, it could be a couple of things. One, your shaft may be too long. You never want to use one that's too short, because if that got out of there for any reason, then you're just going to go down. So make sure you're within that range. Big safety tip there. Or I can see that when I go to lock these and push them up, that rod actually moves up a distance inside that rung. Maybe between 1/2, 5/8 of an inch. So if yours aren't locking for some reason, your template layout may have been incorrect and it's binding up on the rung. But mine seems to work just fine. Alright, that's working just fine. Pulled the tape off. Now I'm ready for the next step. It did come with a sticker making some reference to the feet and the spur ends on him. I'll stick that on the other side. Now I was curious if I was going to lose any travel on this, and it turns out I did not. I've got it all the way up right here, and you want your spur to go opposite the climbing side, so point it towards the wall when you install it. And I can slide that on just like that, and I get an absolute full range of motion on it with no interference with my ladder. So I'll put the nut on, get them tightened up on both sides, and we'll take it out and test it. Okay, well I'm going to give just a little demonstration using this brick right here to simulate uneven ground. And it works great so far. I'm going to try to stay out of the way. Well, my final thoughts on this product is they are awesome. They adjust up to 8.5 inches in differential height. That's pretty impressive, and they're 100% automatic, which I liked even better. There's some that you can buy that are hand operated or foot operated, but when you're holding up a ladder, I didn't want to have to mess with that. I wanted something automatic, so I went with this, and so far I'm completely satisfied with it. Now, the information in this video is only pertaining to my ladder. This is just reference only, so don't use this on any other model of ladder other than what I have done, or you might have a problem. So study the manual, get really familiar with your model of ladder, and go at it very slowly and tediously, and it should work out just fine. Since I was shooting the video, I can't really say how long it took me to install these, but I'd say it was probably within a half hour to 45 minutes, give or take 15 minutes. But all in all, I would highly recommend them, but do your research and do your homework up front. See if you need any of the extra kits and what is going to be involved to install them on your ladder, and make sure you're up to the task. I hope this helps in some way. Thanks for watching, and good luck.